Okay, good evening. We're starting the daf now. We're learning Maseches Shavuos daf Mem Beis. We're starting at the first of the long lines on Mem Aleph Amud Beis, a little bit more than halfway down. And we'll be starting with a lengthy siman that references 8 mini sugyas that we will be talking about that engage the halachos of Shavuos. So let us jump right in. Again, Mem Aleph Amud Beis, about 2/3 of the way down, first of the long lines. Siman. Ruvain v'Shimon detanu hilchasa yasvi upara ploni uploni. That's not the same. What? You know why? Because I have a fundraiser this week. Everybody's running from me. It's one way to clear a room. I enjoyed this very much. I'm not gonna lie. I did enjoy it. A little bit till Torah, but I enjoyed it. Obviously, each one of these phrases or words will be representative of what it is that we will be learning. So here's our first case. Case number 1. Says the Gemara. One person says to another, they say, Ki piratin, when you pay me, please, parinli ba'ape Ruvain v'Shimon. When you pay me, I want you to pay me in front of Ruvain and Shimon. That is what he says. So Azal upare ba'ape treme alma. So the Lova does pay him back, but not in front of Ruvain and Shimon, in front of 2 random Yidden, and it wasn't Ruvain and Shimon. This brings us to a machlokes amurai. Amar Abai ba'ape beitrei Amar le ba'ape beitrei pare. Who cares? Ruvain and Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Yisachar, but it doesn't matter. 2 Jews are 2 Jews. Who's mechalik and what kind of Edom they are? It says Rava, maybe you don't know what he was thinking about. He had a specific reason why he chose them, because that would prevent the guy from pushing off the payment or any other svara therein. So he wanted to make sure that it was done in a way that be mechayiv him. Right? If I say to my close friends, please be there for a specific thing that I need, I'm leveraging. So Rava says maybe he was leveraging. That's Brisa number 1, open and shut. Number 2. Person says to his friend, Ki parasli, when you pay me, parli ba'ape be tre de tanu hilchasa. Please pay me in front of 2 people who know halacha. Bring the dayanim, bring the rabbanim chashuvim, not the average person, but someone who's really holding in halacha. So what did the Lova do? Azal pare bein delay le delay. And then he just paid him between me and him. He paid him privately. He didn't do what he was told to do. He paid him not in front of the dayanim. And isnisu hanach zuze. And then there was an ones, and we weren't able to access the funds anymore. They fell into the yam, whatever the case may be. So now what? Says the Gemara, Asa l'kamed Rav Nachman. So the condition that the Malva had placed on the Love, which is to pay back in front of Talmidei Chachamim, that didn't happen. He paid privately. And now the money's gone. So where does the burden lie? We have a lot of questions like this in life.
That paid in front of he didn't even pay in front of Aiden.
That's correct. But lav dafka that he has a chiyuv to pay in front of Aiden. That was a sugya we learned yesterday.
Does the person who lent the money acknowledge that he was paid?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, 100%. The given of the case is that he was paid, but he didn't pay in the manner in which the Malva had asked him to pay. He was.
Yeah, why do you accept? Yeah. Well, sounds like great work this over. Yeah, if he's seriously meant in front of Aiden, we should accept it.
Well, there were no Adim here, and this wasn't a case where he demanded it be in front of Adim per se. Although the language is cryptic. Look at this. Parin li ba'ape beitrei de tanu hilchasa.
Trey means Aiden. But I could be wrong.
Could be.
You're what I'm saying.
I definitely do. Yeah.
The original.
It was still beitrei to beitrei. Right. So let's see what Rav Nachman said, because he was a Stan, clearly has strong feelings on the matter. He's like, what do you mean? He accepted the money. It should be an open and shut case. Also, the comment of Rav Nachman, Amarle, absolutely, says the Malva, Kibule kibaltin humine. I did accept the money. However, I only did so derech pikadon. Granted the money's mine, but I'm holding it in this quasi state because I only want to fully accept that money with Talmidei Chachamim. That's what the Gemara says. The Amina, I would argue, lehave gaboy pikadon, by me, the return of the money that I actually own is mine. Ad de misramu beitrei, the tanu hilchasa mekayim tana'el. I'm accepting it now, but it's like middle of the road acceptance. I'm not fully accepting it. And what I'm going to do is when I find two Talmidei Chachamim, they're going to look over the transaction. They're going to look over, what it is that me and the Love decided we were going to do. And then it will be a final transaction. So in this phase where it was Pikadon, that's where it was lost. It wasn't really a Pikadon. It was a middle of, the Malve wanted his conditions to be fulfilled. So he took the money, but in his head it was a Pikadon. I'm not done yet. What did Rav Nachman say back to this Malve? Amar Le, Rav Nachman said, Kevan de Kamodis devade shekaltin humine piraon ma'al yahave. He says, that's very nice that you called it a Pikadon. That's adorable. But that's not the way things go. It's a piraon ma'al yahave. What?
Stan or not, but are very much in the same order.
Yeah, they definitely are. And if what you're saying is that you want the conditions to be fulfilled, look at this snarky comment. I love this. Zilai go bring us all of your details. Don't worry. We're Talmidei Chachamim. The Tanina Hilchasa, Visifra, Visifri, the Tosefta, Bekula Talmuda. You can rely on us. Stop playing this Pikadon game. You're worried about your issues? Come over here and talk to me. I'm holding in Shas and Poskim. I love the self-confidence of Nachman to just be like, you're concerned? Come here. Let me tell you about my Dayanos course, all the different topics we learned. Amazing. Okay, that's number 2. Here is Bryson number 3. A person says to his friend, Havli me'azuze de oziftach. Pay me back the 100 that I lent you. Amar le lo hayu dvar me'olam mamish kofer bakol. And then look at what happens. Azal aisi sade de osfe upare. Then they find Adim that says, not only, Mr. Love, did you borrow, but you even paid back. So now we have a problem. Because what did the Love say, the defendant, the Love, he said initially, what was his claim? Lo hayu dvar me'olam. So he was total denial. But the Adim said you borrowed and you paid. So what do we do now? How do we view this person? That's what Abai wants to know. Amar Abai, my ne'avod. What should we do? Inhu, the Adim themselves, Amre Osve, that he did in fact borrow, and Inhu Amre Pare. And he said that he also paid. So what do we do? Rava Amar, Kola Omer lo levisi, ka Omer lo parati dami. He said, anybody who says I didn't borrow, it's also like saying I didn't pay. So seemingly he'd be chayiv to pay in this case. He was kofir, but the Adim said he was Osve Upare, and then we end up saying that he's chayiv to pay. Because if you say lo levisi, then you probably didn't pay back. But they're Adim. That's why the case is complicated. Case number 4, 6 lines from the bottom, 5 lines from the bottom of Mem Aleph Amud Beis. Ahuda Amar Le Lechavre. A man says to his friend, Havli me'azuze demasikna bach. Give me the 100 that we agreed upon. Amar Le lo paraticha bifnei ploni uploni. Didn't I pay you back in front of Reuven and Shimon? So then asu ploni uploni. They went to go get these 2 Jews. Amre lo hayu dvar me'olam. Savar of Sheshes Lameimar Hochza Kafir. And we have Adim who say that they did not pay. And we have the Love saying, oh, didn't I pay you back in front of Reuven and Shimon? So maybe his Hochza Kafir. So says the Gemara, Amar Le Rava, I disagree. Kol Milsa, de lo Ramya Ale de Inish Lavadaite. Anything that a person does not have to have in front of mind, he doesn't have to remember all the details. Now, what was the way that he talked? Didn't I pay you in front? He had a memory that he paid them back. The fact that he can't remember every detail, not by him, that hooks a kafran, says the Gemara. By him, he thought he paid him back. He really, I've had that happen. We've all had. I could have sworn I paid you back. I'm so sorry. This happened to us. We went to an old donor. They're like, what do you mean we didn't pay our bill? It's not like us. We did some research. It was taka true. But they said the same thing. Are you sure that we didn't pay? Happens all the time. They're not a kafran. That's not hooks a kafran. That's just they forgot the details of what did they pay in 10s and 20s and 50s. They don't remember. They have no idea. So that's what Rava says. Next case number 5, 2 lines from the bottom. Mem Aleph Amud Beis. Hu da'amar le lechavre havli shis mei azuze de masikna bach. Give me the 600 that you owe me. Amar le. He says, I think I paid you back. V'lo piratich meya kabe 100 kav of afse. Afse are gallnuts, which are used to extract a dye for the tanning of leather or for the treatment of leather. And at that time, I gave you 100 kav of them And what was their value? Dekaimi b'shisa shisa. They were worth 6 per kav. So 6 times 100 is 600, which was what I owed you. Didn't I pay you back the 600? Amar le, the Malva says back to the Levit, Lav, you paid me back, but it was only arba habukaime. At that time, the value of the market was that it was 4 afze per kav and not 6 afze per kav. So 4 times 100, you only paid me 400. You still owe me 200. Also, Trey Sadiv Amru in the arba habukaime. So here too, it's similar to the previous case. Amar Rava, maybe we should say Huchsa Kafran, because the guy said, "Didn't I pay you 600?" And he really only paid 400 because at that time the market value was a little bit different. The gallnuts were a little more valuable, so 4 per unit. Says the Gemara, Amar Rami Bar Chama, Ha'amris. How can you say that? We just learned at the bottom of the previous page. Kol milsa de lo Rami le deinish lavadaite. Why should he have known? Who cares if I paid you back with 400 in gallnuts and 200 in cash? I think I paid you back. I'm not a kafran. So the Gemara says that maybe he's not a. But then we have 2 cases that are the same. Amar le Ravi says no. This case is different. The case of when I paid you back something based on market value, those are things we remember. Kitsusa de Tara, the measurement of or the market value of the Tara of the marketplace, midcard kire inche. People remember that. So that's why these 2 cases are different. In the bottom case where I say, I'm pretty sure I paid you back in front of Ruvain and Shimon, there we say he's not Huchsa Kafran. But when I say I paid you back in gallnuts, which were the value of either 4 per kav or 6 per kav, there we assume that you actually remember. A little bit of a subtlety. It's not a cash-based deal. You're dealing with items. Yes, but the part that I found hard about this is that I won't remember like the exchange rate of gallnuts per kav. You made a cheshbon. Yeah. Yeah. I hear the broad distinction. I just know my own brain. Like if I went to the cash changer in Israel with a $100 bill on a Tuesday to cash it into shkalim, and I went 3 days later, I would not remember what the previous exchange rate was.
A lot of questions about you too.
That's true. Yeah. That's fascinating. Okay, I hear you. All right, our 6th case. We're on Mem Beis Med Aleph, about 7 lines down. Huda Amar Le Lechavre. A man says to his friend, Havli me'azuzi de mesikna gabach v'hashtara. Please give me the 100 that you owe me, and here's a document to indicate that you owe me. Amar Le Praticha. He says, I already paid you. Amar Le, you did pay me, but hanhu sitroi ninu. Sitroi from like sitra achra, the other. Sitra means the other. Rashi, 7 lines down. Dibramaschel sitroi ninu mitzad acher hayisi chayavli. You're 100% right. I was talking about something else. So what happens to the star in this case? When the Malves says back, hanhu sitroi ninu, Amar of Nachman isra shtara. The fact that we're having this dialogue and it factors in the star, there seems to be a lot of uncertainty about what actually happened, and therefore Isra Shtara. Rav Papa Amar, Lo Isra Shtara, Machlokes. I understood Lo Isra Shtara more than I understood Isra Shtara. I'm saying we're not talking about the star, we're talking about something else. But the Gemara says it's Machlokes Amoraim. And the Gemara says, I don't even understand Rav Papa. Ulu Rav Papa, how could Rav Papa say that Lo Isra Shtara, that the star wasn't messed up? Maishna Mehahu, what about the following case where he did say that it was Isra Shtara? The Amar Leila Chavre, in this case, Rav Papa will have said the following: Havli me'azuzah de mesikna bach, you owe me 100 v'hashtar, and here's a document, same as the previous case. Amar Le, lav atore yahavasli, didn't I pay you back with a shore, with a bull? The asis v'ayisivas amasachta v'kabilas zuzach, and we went over to the butcher, and I gave in the animal, and then I got cash for the animal, and then you got your money. By the way, this mamish happened to me. I went down to Oakland, Illinois to do a circumcision for a family. And after the circumcision, it was like a 3.5 hour drive. It was a good few $1,000s. The family paid me. He's like, oh, I just sold my cow. This is exactly how much money I got. And he paid me with the money from a cow. I feel like this Gemara right now. The guy mamish paid me. Unbelievable. So says the Gemara.
Is that a case where you got a guy that wanted to pay you eggs or something?
They gave me eggs. They gave me, yeah. By the way, that's not normal. You remember that. But by the way, I didn't even do a bris that time. It wasn't even a circumcision. This woman ran a midwife clinic, and I went to go meet her because she fed me a lot of business. So I went, Shalom Aleichem, I whatever. Nice to meet you. Thank you so much. Let's have a cup of coffee, whatever. So I went to her house on a farm in the middle of Wisconsin. She's like, let me just send you home with some eggs. So she did.
I think you should have at least.
Every last one of them had blood in them.
Uh,
Dozens. We tossed everyone.
I
But
think you should at least have had the option to get the cow instead.
I should have had the cow, yeah.
Yeah.
But he already shot it in the head, so it was a little bit different. Wouldn't have helped me that much. He told
Give it to you first. The cow.
unbelievable. This was crazy. By the way, just we're off topic. I want to share a crazy mitzvah that happened today. Today I did a bris in South Bend, Indiana, and the mother of the baby, Anencia Swire, I knew her from there. Like I was Rabbi Phil to her, like as my director of education role that I played there. She's had four boys with 18-month spreads for each kid. So, and I wasn't, they lived somewhere else, I think, for the first, I didn't do the first kid, but the next three I did. Every year she got another tattoo. And this year on her left, I wanted to take a picture of it, but it was tacky, so I didn't because I have some social skills. On her left forearm, it said Slachli. That's what it said in Hebrew. Perfect font, beautifully done, Slachli. Now, it is probably a story behind that I didn't want to ask, but that was unbelievable. Zach. The husband is a Goy Doraisa. I found that out uncomfortably during the first bris because when she called me, I thought she married a kid. She was like in front of our. She was on fire. She mom was like a goy, and I was in the middle of the bris. I'm like, okay, it's almost your turn to say a blessing. He's like, but I'm not Jewish. I don't know how to read Hebrew. Like it took the wind out of me. So of course the Mo makes the bracha, and instead you also name the baby differently. It's Ben Avram. You don't do. It's terrible. But slachli and mamish a tattoo,
Maybe he's Jewish.
and at least he has a kosher bris.
Yeah.
Sad state of affairs. Okay, so it says the Gemara, my nafkamina between these two cases. Let's finish talking about this case. So we said the lova says, I paid you back with the money from the cow. V'kabila zuzach, you got your money. V'amar le, the malva said, hanhu sitraininu. That was a different engagement that you and I had together. I'm talking about something else, not the cow situation, but you owe me money from another transaction. And the amar papa over here, isra shtara. A minute ago, in a nearly identical case, we'll see soon that they aren't identical. But in the first case that we saw that started 7 lines down from the top of the page, we saw there was a machlokes when the person said Hanhu Sitrain Inhu, where Rav Nachman said Isra Shtara, and Rav Papa said Lo Isra Shtara. But over here with the cow case, Rav Papa says Isra Shtara. So you're being so to yourself. Pick one. Says the Gemara, a quarter of the way down. Hasam. In this new case about the cow, Kevan de Ka'amar Atura Yahavasli Umitura Shakal. You're right, I got paid from the cow, therefore Isra Shtara. The cases are different. When the cow was involved, so then they agreed that money changed hands. He agreed to that. It wasn't agreed upon in the previous case. He agreed to that, and therefore the case is different. But in our case, Amor Sitrain, it is possible that there was a second transaction. And because it was very possible there was a second transaction, because there was nothing specific like a cow payment, which stands out, so therefore he held over there that it wasn't Isra Shtara. My have Allah, how do we paskin as to whether or not it's Isra Shtara? Rav Papi Amar lo Isra Shtara, Rav Sheshes Breder Rav Idi Amar Isra Shtara machloket samurai v'hilchasa Isra Shtara. When we have a case in which we are dealing with a claim between a malva and a love and Sitra Ninhu, it's possible that there's another claim. We're saying this is too complex. You messed up the star at this point, and that is the din. However, v'hanimili depare ba'ape sade. That's only true if the payment was made in front of Edom and velo idkar le'shtar, and the star wasn't mentioned, which is a difficult piece of Gemara because the case was where the star was mentioned. Ayin in the Rishonim. Aval pare ben didei lidei. But if he paid privately without being in front of Edom, migu di yachol lamemar lohayu dvar me'olam, because the malva was able to say, you never paid me anything, yachol nami lamemar sitrayin inhu. Because of that, he's also able to claim that I was talking about something else, and then he would be believed to say there was a second claim, from another Masechta. We're not going to go into that now. That was a Gemara that we saw in Maseches Ksubis. We're halfway down on Membez Mad Aleph. We're about to learn our seventh brisa, our seventh statement, I should say, and here's what it sounds like. If you ever hear me say, I didn't pay you back, and you're saying, yeah, you hold on one sec. Oh, sorry. If let's say I'm the love, and you say to me, Phil, pay me back, and I say, I already paid you, and you're the malve, and you say, lo parana, no, you didn't pay me back. So the love is saying, if I ever tell you lo parana, and you say you still owe me money, you're right and I'm wrong. Right? It's a trust situation. I have a bad memory, let's say. So you're always right and I'm always wrong. That's what the love says to the malve. Then Azal pare ba'ape sade. But in this case, he paid back. The Lova Taka did pay back, but he paid back in front of witnesses. But what did the Malve say? I never got paid back. So now we have a problem. The Lova gave the Malve the upper hand. He said, whenever I say lo parana, but you say parana, I believe you. So now the Malve is saying lo parana, but there's Edim who said parana. So now we have an added factor of the Edim. So Abaye v'Rabbi Damar Tarvayu, hahemne. He believes he made a rule. The malva is to be believed, and he would have to pay again. Maskiv Lora Papa, how can you say that? I could understand the lova saying to the malva, look, I'm not a trustworthy guy. Me over you, you're more chashuv than I'm. You're always going to tell the truth. But tfeimi sadeh mi mehemna. We added in Edim. This isn't a pasha case that all of a sudden you can just ignore Edim. This isn't like a super powerful halacha. The Lova doesn't trust himself, so he said to the Malva, if ever I say I didn't pay, then you can make me pay again, no problem. But Edom are much stronger. Eighth case, we're 2 lines before the wide lines on Membez Medalef. We're going to go to the Mishnah on Membez Medbez. We will be behind, but there's a very short blot and a couple of blot, which will help us to catch up. Hahu de Amrle lechavre mehem nesli kibeitre kol emas de amris lo parana. I want you to believe me like 2 witnesses whenever you say lo parana, that I did not pay. Azal para ba'apetzlasa, and then the lova pays in front of 3 people instead of 2. Amar Papa, kibei tre mehemna, the malva is believed only when there are 2 edim. But kibei tlasa, that's not regular edus anymore, and lo hemne, then the malva is not believed. It's only when there are 2 witnesses. Rav Huna doesn't understand this. Amarle Rav Huna, shouldn't it be the more the merrier? Amarle Rav Huna bered Rabbi Yoshua Rav Papa. Amor de Amre Rabbanan Dazlin and Basarov Deos. When is it that we say that more Edim is more powerful? Hanimila le'inyan umdana. That's when we're trying to get an average price. So let's say I was asked, like one individual, Phil, how much does the average Georgian cost in West Rogers Park? And I said 500,000. And then I go around the room. We got a real estate agent. We got people everyone's basically bought houses here. So then the masses will come up with a better average. So if I'm on my own, I'll be off. But if we averaged everyone's experience together, then we would get 540,000. We'll be closer. So says the Gemara, le'inyan umdana, when we're making an assessment, then the more the merrier. But because the common beneficia, the more people there are, we as a group become more expert. Aval le'inyan edus, I don't understand. Le'inyan edus, mea ketrei v'trei kemea. So why would you, Rav Papa, distinguish between 2 edim and 3? You said that by 2 edim, we say the malva is still right and the lova has to pay again, but by 3 we don't. Why? Trey is kemea. It doesn't matter if you have 2 versus 3. Lishna achrina, 2/3 of the way down, a little bit more, 4 lines into the wide lines, another iteration of this story. Hahuda amar lechavre mehem nasli kibeitrei kolemis tamar slo parana, same case. Also upara ba'apet tlasa, and really the lova went and paid in front of 3. Amar Papa kibeitrei hemne, kibeit tlasa lo hemne, same exact thing again. And maskiv lo Rav Huna bered Rabbi Yoshua trei kemea umea ketrei. Why would you say that, Rav Papa? I disagree. And then Rav Huna bered Rabbi Yoshua adds another piece. The amar le kibeit tlasa. If I, the lova, would have said to you, I'm going to pay you back in front of 3 people, but then I paid you back in front of 4, then now that you've gone down to just having the collected knowledge of 3 people, which isn't a number of edim, that's not edus anymore. When we talk about edus, we talk about 2. Now there are 3. That's clear that you're no longer talking about edus. Therefore, nachis l'deos. Then even if you then you pay back in front of 4, then we don't care. And you have then made it that it doesn't matter what number of people you paid in front of. Okay, that brings us to the 2 dots. We just finished 8 little halachos You can do a good chazar on them rapidly, and let us continue now about 10, 12 lines from the bottom of Mem Beis Medal. A double din. We're not going to make a cheirashot v'katan make a shvua ve'in mashbinas akatan. We don't make a shvua on the claim of a cheirashot v'katan, and we're not mashbia akatan. My timer, because of the pasuk Amar Kraki in ish el re'ehu kesef o kelim lishmor ve'in esinas katan klum. Katan is a zero. Haval nishbain lakatan ulehektish. However, according to some, we're nishbain lakatan ulehektish. Va'amras reisha. How can you say that? We said in the reisha, ein nishbain al tainas should be cheirashot v'katan. So why over here does the Mishnah say aval nishbain lakatan? So Amar Rav, this is going to be a machlokes between Rav and Shmuel. Rav says we're talking about beba b'tainas aviv. We're talking about a claim of a yasom about his father. V'Rebbe Lazar ben Yaakovi. And our Mishnah can be understood through the lens of Rebbe Lazar ben Yaakov de Tanya. What does the Brisa say? Rebbe Lazar ben Yaakov Omer, Pamim sh'adam nishbal tainas atzmo. Sometimes a person has to make a claim, a shvua, on his own claim. So let me say that in English. Sometimes a person has to make a claim, make a shvua on their own claim. Ketzad, what would that case be? Amar lo, mana le'avicha biyadi. A random guy goes over to a yasom and says, your father lent me 100, ve'echaltiv pras, and I paid back half. Harez nishba. This person has to make a shvua that he's telling the truth. V'zeu shenishbal tainas atzmo. So this random guy comes up on it. Nobody solicited him. This random guy comes up and says, sorry for your loss. Your father lent me 100. I paid you back half. I still owe you 50. So that man has to make a shvua. Nobody solicited him to make a shvua. He did it on his own. By him coming up with a taina, he has to make a shvua. The Chachamim Omrim, that's not true. This random guy who goes over to the Yasam and says, your father owed me 100 and I paid back 50 and I owe you 50, he does not have to make a shvua. No shvua at all. He's like Meshiv Aveda. We don't make a person who's Meshiv Aveda give a shvua. So again, random guy from the street. No one said anything to him. Nobody knew. No one knew anything. Random, just totally random guy. So if that random guy goes over to the Yasam and says, your father really lent me 100, I paid you back 50, there is no shvua. Machlokes tonight. We're going to analyze this machlokes a little bit more on the top of the next amud. Now, what do we see from this brisa with Rebbe Lazar ben Yaakov? What did Rebbe Lazar ben Yaakov hold in the brisa? He held that you are chayav to make a shvua in that case. That is the shita of aval nishbain lakatan in the Mishnah that we didn't understand. That part of the Mishnah fits kafter b'ferach. It fits hand to glove beautifully with Rebbe Lazar ben Yaakov. Rebbe Lazar ben Yaakov lesle meshiv aveda pater. He doesn't agree to the Chachamim. Why not? Amar Rav b'sheta'ano katan. Says the Gemara. Rav says that's when is that true? When the katan was towing that person, not when the man comes up by himself. Yeah, but the guy didn't come on his own volition, so the cases are totally different. Wait, let me read that again. Rebbe Lazar ben Yaakov lesle meshiv aveda pater. How could he not hold that way? Amar Rav b'sheta'ano katan. Rav says that the case we're dealing with is when the katan was towing. Rav says the other case is when it was ta'ano katan. So we had a stira in our Mishnah, which was the presentation of the question at the two dots. One part of the Mishnah said about nishbayin lakatan, and then the Gemara said, how can you say that? Ha'amers ein nishbayin al tainas shotu v'katan. So the line of Rebbe Lazar ben Yaakov, where you're chayav, that's where the kid was towing chayav shvua. But when no one solicited that man, then he's kameshiv aveda. Katan, how can you say that? So says the Gemara, you're right. Really, la'olam gadol. We are talking about an adult, and we just called him a katan. Because the legabe mili davu a katanu. He's a katan, and we've seen this before in Shas, I believe, that sometimes we refer even to an adult as a katan. It is obviously confusing because the language of katan and gadol are very specific languages, but there are times that we will use the term not halachically, but almost euphemistically, that you are granted, you might be 40 years old. Maybe, might be 60 years old, but you're a katan relative to your father. Says the Gemara, then I don't understand. Hachi tainas atzmo. Then why are you saying this is tainas atzmo? If the gadol solicited that man, then that's not tainas atzmo. That's tainas achermu. So don't say tainas atzmo, which is what the brisa presented. The brisa that we were dealing with discussed it in these terms of Tainus Atzmo. So it says the Gemara, not only that, but Tainus Acherim v'hodas Atzmo, that's kulhu nami Tainus Acherim v'hodas Atzmo ninu. That's almost every case where people say something and then it brings about a Shavua. So how could you have the Chachamim disagreeing? That's every case. That's most cases. So if you're saying that really the case that we're dealing with is where the Gadol solicited, he pushed on the other guy and said, you owe us money. So that's every case in Shas. So how could the Chachamim say that's Meshiv Aveda? That's every case of Shavuot, Kimat. Says the Gemara, Ella, you're 100% right. Really, Rabbi Lazar ben Yaakov and the Chachamim are b'derabba kamiflagi. They're arguing about Rabba. What is the argument about? Top of Membeis Medbeis, second line. Do Amar Rabba. Mipnei ma amra Torah mode mixas atayno yishava. Why does the Torah teach us that if a person admits to mixas atayna, why does he have to make a shua? So hold cup here. This is a multi-step answer. It's not hard. You just have to hold cup. So says the Gemara. First of all, fourth line. Chazaka ein adam meiz pana bifnei bal chovo. Number one is that if I owe you money, I'm not going to look you in the eyes and say, I don't owe you money, step one. If really he wanted to be kofar on everything, he could have. Why didn't he? Is mishum de'ein me'iz pana bifnei bal chovo, which means he actually does owe money. And if in fact he does owe money, then he really should have admitted that he owed everything. Why didn't he? Was because he said, let me just not pay you back today, I'll pay you back tomorrow. So this lengthy svara basically is that according to Rabbah, the reason why we have an idea of moda b'mixas ataynu yishava is because there's no way he would be meiz panav b'fnei bal chovo. He wouldn't do that. And if he's saying he owes a little bit, he probably means he owes the whole thing. He just doesn't have the money right now. And therefore, if he's going to be modim, we're going to make him promise that he's telling the truth. That's why we're pushing him. Now, this is not where we have a machlokes. Here, but the following line is, remember, we're trying to figure out the machlokes between Rabbi Lazar ben Yaakov and the Chacham. The Gemara says about 12 lines down on Membeis. Rabbi Lazar ben Yaakov savar, lo shna bo, v'lo shna bibno, eino meiz. When do we say ein adam meiz panav bifnei bal chovo? According to Rabbi Lazar ben Yaakov, that's true both by me borrowing from the father and talking directly to the father, that's direct chutzpah. But Rabbi Lazar ben Yaakov extends it even to the son. So let's say that somebody lent my father money, and I went over, I went over to them and said, "Stan, you owe me money. You owe my father money." Would we say that Stan won't be meiz panav in front of me? You didn't lend me the money. It wasn't me. It was my dad. So like it's different. But Rabbi Lazar ben Yaakov says it's not different. Eino meiz. A Baal Chov can't be true in today's era. We lie about everything.
That's the complete opposite of the bottom line that we said. No.
That what?
That in your father's business, you're a cut. I mean, you're not holding. Here, not only are you holding, but he won't be made because you're like that's in the same one. Maybe there's a hill, but. Good point. Right? Why did they call him a cut? Because in his father's business, he's a cut. When it comes to his father's business, he's a cut. Fine, I understand that. Here, it's saying you're no different. Like I said, maybe there's a hill between what you see.
I think in Shaklavataria, we're rejecting that answer. It's that's what it seems like. That's what the Gemara says. Ella, you're right. This is the second line. Ella, you're right. We're not talking about that case. We're talking about a regular case of maize in other maize part of the Balchovo in Shaklavataria.
Son.
Right. Yeah. Correct.
Maybe necessarily reject.
That's correct. Although it seems that way from here.
Yeah.
And v'hilkach, because in front of a child, a love will not be meiz panav, so then he's chayav shvuah in the same frame of moda b'mixas atayna. He'd be chayav shvuah hilkach lav meishiv avedu. Rabbanan sabre b'fanav hu de'eno meiz, aval bifnei beno meiz. Umid lo meiz meishiv avedu. So this is the machlokes. What is the scope of application when we say ein adam meiz panav bifnei bal chovo? According to Rabbi Lazar ben Yaakov, it's even to a son. And According to the Chachamim, they say absolutely not. That we've seen this. I actually expected the line to say meiz umeiz. We've seen that line before also. Oh, oh yeah, he has no problem. Tell him no problem at all. He has he'll lie straight to your face. So that's what we did. We now understand the Rebbe Elazar ben Yaakov holds loshna the loshna bo v'loshna bibno, and therefore we're able to understand why it is that there's a case of al nishbain lakatan. What do you mean nishbain lakatan? So Rebbe Elazar ben Yaakov says, based on the brisa, that the din in our Mishnah of al nishbain lakatan means when the katan is being spoken to by the love, ein adam meiz panav ivnei bal chovo, you're chayav shvua. That's what the Gemara says. But now we have a problem, a third of the way down. Mi matzis mukmas like Rebbe Elazar ben Yaakov. How can you say that our Mishnah is Rebbe Elazar ben Yaakov? Beautifully explained, but how can you say that? We have a side issue. Haktani Resha. The Resha says, Mana la'aba biyadcha. And then he says back to him, Ein lecha biyadi ala chamishim dinar, pater mipnei shemeshi vavedahu. That is exactly not what Rebbe Elazar ben Yaakov holds. Rebbe Elazar ben Yaakov holds that it's moda mixas hatayna, and it's mana la'aba biyadcha, and he's talking to the child, and instead of seeing the shvua that we just worked on developing, now we see it's kimeshi vaveda. So the Gemara adds in another layer, one that we didn't discuss yet. Hasam delo amar barili. Over there, in the Resha of the Mishnah, he didn't say barili, and therefore it's kimeshi vaveda. He wasn't sure. But hacha, if you say the amar barili, so then his taina is real, and therefore you're machayev ha'meshuvah. But again, it's an extra. It's like a verification of your comment. I'm really 100% sure. It's like adding in that extra little oomph. And all of this is answer number one to our Gemara. Let's remember the question that we had asked at our Gemara is that we have a stira from one part of our Mishnah to the other. One part of our Mishnah says about nishbayim lekatan. And how can you say that? The Reish of our Mishnah says ein nishbayim al taina shecher shotav lekatan. That was a stira. We brought Rab's answer, a very developed answer that Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov is the author of our Mishnah, and it's based on one side within Rabbah. No problem. Let's see the second answer of Shmuel. Shmuel Amar, you misunderstood our Mishnah. When the Mishnah says lekatan, that means lipara minichse katan, that payments can come from a child's property. And lehektish, what does that word mean, even though this isn't our sugya? But when the Mishnah says lehektish, that's lipara minichse hektish, that a person gets paid from hektish under certain rare circumstances. That was the line of the Mishnah, and I'll quote it again. Aval nishpoin lekatan ulehektish. There is a shvua for a katan or for a hektish. Now let's plug it in. There is a shvua to take from the property of a child, and there is a shvua to take from the property of hektish. That's how Shmuel understands our Mishnah. But we have to analyze this. Likatan, lipara minichse katan, 1/3 of the way down. How can you say that, Tanina? We already learned this. Minichse yisomim lo yipara ela b'shvua. That if you're taking from a yasom, you're taking from the katan whose father died, so the din is lo yipara ela b'shvua. We already know that. So then why do we need our Mishnah that said abal nishbayin lekatan ulehektish? We already know that. Says the Gemara, tarte lamali. And says the Gemara, hakamash malan kide abayi kshisha. This teaches us that we hold like abayi kshisha. The Tani abayi kshisha, we have a brisa that speaks about the sheet of abayi kshisha. Gemara we've seen a couple of times. Yisomim she'amru gedolim. The Yisomim that we're talking about are older. Ve'en tzarech lo marktan, pashut even by children. Bein l'shvua, certainly in regards to shvua, and bein l'ziboris to remind us of this din that when you collect from a katan, you can only collect from the inferior properties and not from even the Benoni properties, and certainly not from the Edis. And we're going to continue learning this, even though it's not relevant to our question. We've already answered our question, but we're going to continue anyways. Lehektish lipar minichse hektish tanina. We learned about that din also from our Mishnah. Minichasim mishubadim lo yiparu ela b'shvua. Umali mishubadim lehedjar, umali mishubadim legavoa. If you're going to collect from a hedjar or from gavoa, if you're going to collect, you need to say a shvua. So why do we need our Mishnah to say aval nishbayin lekatan ulehektish? We already know that from another Mishnah. So says the Gemara, last of the short lines, heading to the Mishnah. Itzrich, we need both cases. Salkadaita chamina, I might have thought that there's a difference between a hedyot and hektish. I might have thought that by hedyot, by there, in that case, hu da adam ose kinunya al hedyot. You come up with a trick and you come up with a shtick because it's okay. It's just you and your money. We're friends. All right, I'll shave $1 here, shave $1 there. Aval, I might have thought that hektish to ein adam osek knunya al hektish. I might have thought that there is no knunyas. People don't mess around with hektish because it's holier, right? I might steal money from you, but I won't steal from the pushka in the Beis HaKnesses. So says the Gemara, Kamash Malan. That's not true. We fear that people will do knunyas under all circumstances, that they're just dishonest. Wait 1 second. Ve'omar Rav Huna, shchiv meira sheikdish kol nechasa. If you have a shchiv meira who says he was makdish everything to the Beis HaMikdash, but with a caveat, ve'omar mana leploni biyadi, I owe Ploni Almoni $100, he's still ne'eman. So says the Gemara, Chazaka ein adam ose knunya al hektish. Here we see exactly not what we just said. We just said the reason why we have two sources, our case where it says aval nishbain lekatan ule hektish, and this new source of the brisa of minachas mishubadim lo yiparal b'shvua. We said we needed both to make sure that we knew that people will stick around, even when it comes to hektish, they'll do kenunyas. But over here by the shchiv meira, it says chazaka ein adam osek kenunya al hektish. So obviously the answer is going to be that a shchiv meira is not normal. We spent kimat half of a masechta talking about this Maseches Gittin. So Amri, the Gemara says hani mi shchiv meira. The case is totally different. The ein adam chote v'lolo. There's no upside to a shchiv meira lying. He's dying. He has no benefit to lie at all. He's not benefiting from the chait, and he therefore will not do anything wrong. That's why we say over there that ein adam osek kenunya behektish, because he's on his way out. He has no reason to stick around. Aval gabe bari vaday chayshina. But when it comes to a person who's a bari making a claim like that, sorry, we trust you as far as we can throw you. All right, we'll stop right here at the new Mishnah, and Yirtzeh Hashem will pick up on Shabbos. Wishing you all a beautiful night.